We thank God so much for bringing us here together. We will start right away. The early bird catches the worm. So those of us here are privileged to know what we are doing beyond Mpataba, which is unchained leadership. Let's roll.
Lina.
Doug.
Good evening to your cherished audience. And thanks so much for another opportunity to share the adventures beyond Mpataba, because this is part of the adventures beyond Mpataba. Let me put it this way. Last week, I think the focus was on the autobiography,
Right.
Which is a midlife story about my own life, the experiences I went through, the rationale behind writing the book, and some of the mysteries of life which I uncovered during the writing of the autobiography. You actually cornered me last week by programming me for today as well,
right.
To focus on the second book, which is Unchained Leadership. Right. The interesting thing about this book is that after the launch of the autobiography, after the launch of the Adventures Beyond Mpataba in 2012, November 2012, I started receiving questions like, when are you going to write your next book? Yes, those questions kept coming. Mm. The usual answer was, well, as I'm led. So in 2013, somewhere in 2013, I have this friend, a family friend actually, Gifty Gadri. She lost the mom, and her brother in the US had to come down. He's a pastor, a reverend pastor. He had to come down for the mother's funeral. And apparently Gifty had sent the autobiography to him. So he had gone through it, he had read it. When we met, and that was the first time I was meeting him, when we met, we interacted for some time. And then he said that he sees me writing another book on leadership. Mm. That's what he senses in the spirit, that I need to write something on leadership. Of course, at that time, just like the autobiography, I had not really made up my mind about any project like that. So I took it in good faith and started thinking about it. And the rest, as I say, is history. The Unchained Leadership, the title itself, sometimes I think it gives a different connotations or meanings to people. Mm-hmm. But what I had in mind with that title is that, you see, we have various forms of leadership, all kinds of leadership. We can talk about political leadership, we can talk about family leadership, we can talk about corporate or business leadership, we can even talk about spiritual or religious leadership, we can talk about voluntary association leadership, community leadership, a whole host of it, okay? And for each, and of course, political leadership as well. Now, for each of these leadership forms, there's this peculiar skill or traits or attributes that a person needs to excel. Okay, you need some specific or peculiar skills to excel in any of this. So if you're a political leader, you need certain specific skills. If it's in the family, you need certain skills and so on. But I realized that amongst all of these forms of leadership, there are those general skills, there are those general traits that is common to all of them. So the whole idea was to write or put out something that was common to all forms of leadership, so that this would be more like the foundation. And then you can also explore those specific traits linked to the other forms or the various forms of leadership. So the unchained, that means that the leadership knowledge or skills that I'm putting out there, it's not chained to any particular form of leadership. It's not chained to religious leadership. It's not chained to religious leadership. It's not chained to community leadership. It is something that every leader could learn something from and then explore it further with the specific areas that they find themselves. So that's what the unchained leadership there means. It's not really specific to any particular form of leadership. It is something that is general to all. So I don't know if you want to come in. Yeah.
Yes, let me be quick to ask. Going through the overview of the book, I realized that a portion of it, it says that, where two or more people, there is some kind of leadership. So let's take, for instance, I have a friend, just on a normal day life friend, we are friends. Would you say that leadership will play a role here? It will come to bear in a way. So we need certain, if not soft skills, certain things to be able to probably take the friendship far or something like that.
Wonderful question. Wonderful question. Let me put it this way, Lina, to the extent that two or more people, and this case, you cited the case of you and your friend, to the extent that you have some common goals, to the extent that you have some common aspirations, to the extent that you have some common challenges or problems, leadership is implied in there.
Right.
Okay. Now, if we trace it back to the creation of the world, from the Christian point of view, God created Adam and Eve. And even within that small enclave of Adam and Eve, there was some form of leadership which God instituted. Okay. And of course, they had to survive in the garden. They had to face the challenges together. They had to face some aspirations together and all those things. So to that extent, where there's some commonality among people, where there's some common objectives or goals or challenges or problems or aspirations, leadership is a must. And you see, if you look at the development of man over the ages as well, you see that basically man is a social being. We cannot help but live together. And that's where the concept of families come in, the concept of communities, the concept of organizations. And this is made up of people. Okay, so when you define a group, and I don't want to be too technical here, but when you define a group, it's just a collection of people who come together, okay, to pursue a certain cause, to pursue some challenges or pursue some goals, to pursue or deal with things that are common to them. And in each of these circumstances or situations, there is the need for leadership. There's always that need for leadership. And you can even look at it from the angle that you see where there are two people, you are likely to differ on a few things. Even if you have a common goal, you are likely to differ on a few things.
Definitely.
Extend this to a community. Look at the number of people who could be in a village, a town, or a city. We all want clean water. We all want good housing. We all want good roads and all this thing. But how to get to that goal, to get to that end will differ in how to get there. And that's why there's always a need for a person or group of persons to guide us, to direct us, and to take us to where we want to be. Okay, so the concept of leadership always comes in where there's that's why it's one of the oldest institutions in mankind's history.
Right.
Because where people are gathered, where we have people together, there's always the need for somebody who will provide some guidance, who provide some direction, who provide some support, who provide some aspiration to get to where the group wants to get to. And that is where leadership comes in.
Wow. Okay, so before we go into the book proper as to the maybe step-by-step, approaches to leadership, some school of thought say that a leader is born. Others say, oh, by way of learning, you can become a leader. What's your take on that?
Yes, I think I had opportunity to address this in the book. Now, from my own personal experience, this is what I think, or this is what my position is. I believe that certain people are born with some leadership traits. I mean, and some of the traits we'll talk about later, but there are certain traits that lend a lot to leadership, and some people are born with it. Okay. Now, there are those traits too, and some of these traits can actually be learned. Okay, so with some people it comes naturally, but with some you have to learn it. They have to acquire it in a way, and that is where the difference comes in. Okay. So yes, some leaders are born, some leaders are also made, they acquire it. Okay. So the what I realize is that when it comes naturally, then it is easier to perform. It's also easy to perform when it comes naturally, because even the natural one, you still need to learn certain things more, which I pause a lot in the book. Okay. So both types of leaders exist. It is not one or the other. Even those who have a natural inclination to leadership, they still can learn and become even better and more excellent than they are.
So at what point would you say that somebody should test the pulse to see if he or she is a leader?
See, the like I mentioned earlier on, there are some of the traits, there are some leadership traits that come naturally. First of all, let me put it this way. There are people who find it very difficult to sit aloof and see things go wrong.
Right.
They always want to find a way to solve challenges facing the community or the group. Okay, they want to be involved in what the general group is doing. There are some people who have that inclination to want to help others. Okay, and they have that listening ear. They have that empathy for people. They want to walk the walk of others. They want to experience what others are doing. These are traits of leadership, because at the end of the day, leadership is a service that is rendered to a group of people. Okay, that's why sometimes people talk about servant leadership. It's a service. Okay, so if you don't have that inclination to support people, if you don't have that love for people, if you don't have that empathy for people, then these are things that you would have to learn or acquire them in order to be able to perform your leadership well. But if these are things that come naturally to you, then it is easier to add other traits to make you excellent. So that's it.
Probably my last question before we start from the chapters of the book. Would you say, you have cited acquired a few traits, empathy, love, and all that. Would you say that leaders are impatient? Because you wouldn't want to sit and watch aloof. You wouldn't want to stand and stare for things to go wrong. Would you therefore say that leaders are impatient?
I wouldn't put it as being impatient, but I will say that leaders always want results. Leaders always want to see change. Leaders always want the group they are leading to move on. Leaders always want results for their groups. They always want to see things get better.
But they are time-bound, right?
Well, the time aspect of leadership differs from one situation to the other. Okay, it differs from one situation to the other. So, of course, in some cases, the time becomes very critical, in which case I wouldn't so say that they are impatient.
Right.
They just want results. And if something needs to be completed or concluded within, say, a month or 2 or 3, then the leader would want it to be done accordingly. Okay, right. But you see, to say a leader is impatient for me is looked at from the negative point of view. They want results, and they will do everything to ensure that that result is achieved, which is why it may come across as being impatient, but about the vision that they have. And that vision, remember that it is not a vision to satisfy you as a leader, it is a vision to move the group forward. And that's why you need to balance your own need for results with the need of the group for results. Otherwise, then it becomes like a personal agenda. But leadership is about people. It's not even about yourself per se. It's about people and the people you are helping. And so you need to find a fine balance between your own aspirations and the aspirations of the group. One of the things I talk about.
Thank you so much. Wonderful people. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the Seer Show, a proud initiative by Prophetess Rhoda Anna Asiedu-Umafo. She's the General Overseer of Manifestation of Holiness. We meet here Mondays through to Fridays for our midnight raw. The time is 4 a.m. Ghana time. And we also meet here Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays for our Zion Hour and Time with the Word of God, respectively. And the time is 4 p.m. Wherever you are, you want to do the calculation to suit your location. With me today is Dr. Edward Ernest Ackah-NYamike Jnr. He started with us Adventures Beyond Impataba last week, and today we are treating something on unchained leadership. We have been joined by our beautiful Mrs. Juliet Ackah-NYamike, always smiling. You are so much welcome. You are so much welcome. So, Doc, I want you to now open the book, Unchained Leadership. Let's go step by step and see what the book entails.
All right. So, Lena, much as I would wish to go into every page or chapter in the book, I also want to try and summarize it in a manner that will also get a good audience to look for the book and read.
Right.
Okay. Because
I tried.
Okay, so what I did with the book was to give it a certain context, to establish a certain basic understanding of leadership. Because I realized that sometimes we talk about leadership as if it's in some form of a vacuum. It's something hanging out there which we need to grab. It is something that is a creation of mankind as well, because of the sort of spirit and nature that God really placed into us. Man is a social being. Okay, so I try to establish it from the Garden of Eden as well, and the development of mankind over the years through the various ages that went through the Stone Age, the Agricultural Revolution, this present technology age. Notice that basically we are in one group or the other. We always find ourselves in one group or the other. You are either in a family, or you are in a school, or you are at a workplace, or you are in the church, or you are in a community. All of these are basically forms of group. You interact with people, and then you see that for each of these groups that I've mentioned, there's always some form of goals that they need to set for themselves. There's some form of aspirations. Even within the family circles, we may not notice that the family has goals, but when you see that a family would want to have a certain kind of name, I mean, when you mention the family's name, it should exude some sort of response, that is a very silent goal that the family has set itself. Okay, so I established this context for leadership in the book, and I ended by saying that when you look at all these groups that we've talked about, there's always a need for somebody or some group of people to provide guidance, to provide direction, to provide support, to provide some roadmap for the group to achieve its goals, for the group to achieve its purpose or for the group to achieve, overcome its challenges or problems. Because even Christ told us that in this world we will have problems. The problems will always be there. So we will need to deal or sort out our problems. And we wouldn't have to get somebody or some people to be able to take it. And I mentioned earlier on that if you even look at it from the simple fact that we all have different ideas or opinions on issues, that there has to be a fine line to help us to get to that point. So that is a point of which I started it. And to make it closer to us, I used the story of Moses. I mean, Moses from the Christian point of view, in terms of his leadership experience, right from the time he was born to being raised in Pharaoh's house to getting, okay, to the point of getting to Egypt to bring the Israelites out to the promised land and so on. I mean, it's a huge case study for leadership. So I wanted to get that context for leadership as well. And so you see that I came out with some lessons in leadership from the Moses story, which is in the book. I think about 8 or so of those lessons from Moses' point. One of the things that excites me, which I believe all leaders in this audience will have to notice, is that leadership is one of the most bastardized institutions. I mean, once in a leadership position, you will be badged. And even Moses' own sister had cause to rebel against him at one point. So these are things that happened in biblical times, and they are still with us. And I also use Alexander the Great as another example. I use one Christian example, and then I use one non-Christian example as well. Alexander the Great and all the conquests that he did. So I outlined that as well. So that was basically to establish the fact that yes, there's something called leadership, and it is to advance the cause of a group. Moses did it for the Israelites, Alexander the Great did it for the Macedonian country, and so on, and it goes everywhere. Then, in order to, again, ensure that we appreciate this whole leadership, I decided to focus on that concept of groups. We need to understand this concept of groups, because without groups, there's no leadership, except this self-leadership that is coming up these days. I mean, there's also something called self-leadership, that you should be able to lead your own self, but that's a different topic altogether. But the real sense of leadership has to do with groups. So every person must understand the concept of groups, whether it is with families, whether it is with a corporate organization, whether it is with a community. The important is that where there is a collection of people who have common goals or objectives or aspirations, okay, you have a group. Okay, so a family is a group, a corporate is a group, a church is a group, and all that. And in order to, because the leadership we are talking about relates to these groups. So if you need to be a leader, or if you're a leader, then you have to understand the concept of groups. And I needed to go through these processes in groups, like the concept of mission, because groups have mission. They also have their own rules, regulations, and then they have structures, positions. When you go to a church, there are positions in the church, there are roles in the church. You know, all those things, I think that has to do with groups. And that's where leadership takes place. So to be able to appreciate leadership, then you need to understand and appreciate groups, which is what I think one of the chapters really dealt with. Okay, now when you are able to appreciate this concept of groups, then the next thing that I focused on was to look at leadership function. Right. Because now we understand groups, We know what groups are about. We know their mission. We talk about their position, roles, and processes and all that. So when you have a leader in the group, what is the function of that leader? And remember the point I made earlier on that these are general skills that must apply to any form of leadership.
Right.
And one of the functions I put out for, one of the functions, and it has so many sub-functions under it, it's planning. Planning. Every leader must learn how to plan. There must be some form of planning because we have to look into the future. Life is not stagnant. We have today, but there's tomorrow. There's tomorrow there's next year, there's a month, all that. Okay. So there is, and we cannot sit aloof and think that things will happen the way we want it without projecting into the future, which is what the whole concept of planning is. And you see, when you rip planning apart, it means a serious understanding of the groups that you deal with. Okay, what does the group want? What are their goals? If it is a group that you set up yourself, why did you set it up? What do you intend to achieve with that, with the group and all those? So that planning, and basically planning is about setting some goals, targets for yourself. I see targets are set based on understanding of the situation. And that's why we talk about those from my class back in Lagos, we'll talk to you about situation analysis, where you ask all the questions that you need to ask about your situation. If you are having challenges in the family or the workplace or the church, what you need to do first of all is some serious situation analysis. How did we get to where we are? What are the contributing factors? What are the variables that has led to the situation? Before you can even start thinking of making any projections into the future. And so the planning captures all of these things. In fact, sometimes people push it to say that's about the vision of the leader, and it's all part of it. Okay, it's all part of it. The only thing is that when it comes to this planning, you will have to, and I don't want to make this interaction like a lecture room interaction, but it's important to mention that there are various ways that this planning can be done, because as a leader, remember that your focus is on your group. And so you have to devise a way that brings people into that planning process, that brings people into the vision that you have, that brings people into the target that you are setting. This is all part of the planning process, and you should be able to do that. And you see, it's in talking about this planning thing, with regards to bringing people on board, you also need to know that at the end of the day, and I think I keep stressing that at the end of the day, it is not about you, it's about the group. So you are planning in a manner that will ensure that the group is in the picture. Okay, so that's one of the functions. The next function is implementation. Implementation. And implementation here is basically acting on your plans. A lot of people have plans, a lot of people have activities that they have put out there, but they never get to implement it, never get to undertake it, never get to do it. We have big plans, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this. I'm thinking of doing that. If you continue to plan and you never implement, it is not planning at all. And so,
Doug, let me quickly come in.
Yes, Lina.
Why would it so happen? Is it because they are setting too high, standards for themselves, reason they can never get to achieve it?
You're right. It could be that and several other things. You see, apart from certain goals that are not achievable, and that's sometimes the issue of smart goals or smart objectives come in. Your goals must be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and all those things. So it could be any of them. You could set goals that are not even achievable, okay? And then at the end of the day, you can't implement it because you don't even have the resources to undertake it. Okay, so it could be that, it could be the fact that you even consider the real situation on the ground in terms of the resources needed, in terms of the capability of those you are going to work with, in terms of their readiness to work with you. All of that could be a factor why implementation becomes a problem. And the popular problem of procrastination. Yeah, I'll do it, and never gets done. It is one thing that kills implementation. So, it could be anything. But the important thing is that when you are planning, and that's why you need to do some critical analysis of the situation analysis we are talking about. You need to be very critical, okay? Because then you will appreciate what you have on the ground, what you are capable of getting, and what your people are capable of contributing, so that when it comes to implementation, you are able to act. So that is implementation. And as a leader, if you're not able to implement, then you are not a leader. You will not be achieving the goals of your group. You will not be helping them to overcome their challenges or meet their aspirations. So implementation must follow a carefully planned okay. And then the third function.
I want to come in before the third function comes in. So talking about implementation, we are talking about the general view of leadership. Depending on what kind of group you are leading, would you say that no matter what happens, finance, money could be one big problem that will hinder progress?
Interesting question. Unfortunately, that is one factor which a lot of people use to hinder implementation, unfortunately. And sometimes we get the opportunity to learn about ways to go around this no money syndrome. But there are a lot of things that we can do even without money. Some people talk about social networking. Sometimes you can get a support from somebody that will take care of the huge money that you wanted to put in there. And so the social network comes in. Then also, like you rightly said, it will depend on the group, but in some cases, people are willing to give out something small to support a good cause. So you need to factor in. But I never like to use funding as the major reason not to get something. There's always a way out of funding challenge, funding.
Right.
Depends on the institution that we're talking about.
Right.
So the next function, very important it's about monitoring. That is quite obvious that when you are implementing, you need to find a way to see if you are doing the right thing, if you are on course, if everything is going as planned. Of course, you have the evaluation where you check whether you actually achieved your purpose, or you achieved the goals, or you achieved the targets that you set for yourself. So in a nutshell, these four functions are basic leadership functions. And you see, it will depend on the level of leadership that we are talking about. And here, that's why I try to keep my leadership functions very general. It's not about presidency. It's not only about being a minister. Even the leader in the classroom, the school prefect, the leader at the cell in the church, the cell group in the church, the family leader, okay, whether you are a single mom or you are in a marriage, I'm talking about all of these leadership, and all of these functions are very relevant. You just have to look at leadership context within which you are, and then apply these functions. And if you go into the nitty-gritty of these functions, as I try to capture in the book, there's so much that can be done with these 4 functions. There's so much there that can occupy a leader for all the time that you have to be. So, Lina, these are the functions that I believe that every leader must learn how to operate. So after establishing this, then I moved on to look at what leaders need to perform. Because we are talking about groups, we appreciate groups now. We are talking about what a leader must do, which is a leadership function we just talked about. Now, what do leaders need to perform? What do they need? And try to capture a number of them in the book. And all of these, a lot of them are from personal experience, from various leadership roles that I have performed, from the very simple type to the more complex. Okay. Now, some of the things that I think leaders need, first of all, it's that thorough understanding of your own self. A leader must know himself. And that's the self-assessment thing that you have to know yourself. If you're in a leadership position, you have to know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Some people ignore these things and get themselves all kinds of trouble. That's why sometimes we have scandals, even in the church place, and scandals in the corporate environment and all that, because some leaders never took time to understand themselves and what they are or are not capable of. Every leader must spend some time to understand yourself. Things, know who you are. Know who you are as a leader. There's a way to do that. I think recently I led a full gospel chapter through a topic like knowing yourself. There's a way to do it, and you have to know yourself. Another thing that a leader needs to perform effectively is that continuous self-improvement. You have to improve yourself all the time. You really, really have to prove yourself. Well, let me give a quick point here. As you already mentioned, I'm the president of the Ghana Hotels Association. Now, this is an industry, talking about the that deals with all kinds of things. There are legal issues, there are power issues, there are energy issues, there are copyright issues, hospitality issues, there are tourism issues. And Lina, I really, really had to learn all of these things. Okay, I had to learn a lot of economics to be able to deal with the association's issues and a whole host of them. To the extent that sometimes when I'm responding to issues, people think I'm an expert. I'm not. It is just because at the position I find myself, I need certain things to help me go. And so I continuously improve myself. So every leader must find a way to improve himself. And it's not even about knowledge alone. It's even about your attitude. It's about your health. It's about your posture, your presentation, everything about you. You have to find a way to be improving. And then I mentioned earlier on that you have to know your group. That one is basic because you are leading a group, but the group, so you need to know your group. And then you also need to know the environment within which you operate in. I'm sure you agree with me that a church in Ghana is different from a church in, say, the UK, or a church in the US, or a church in Korea or China. Okay, so as a leader in any of these countries, you have to understand the environment within which your group operates in, because everything that you do impacts on the environment. Environment also impacts on your group. Okay, so it's something that a leader needs to perform, knowing the group's environment. And of course, basic things like sacrificial. I mean, leadership is sacrificial. If you don't understand the concept of sacrifice, please think twice about leadership, and then leadership skills. it's something also needs. Let me try and explain this leadership skill, because I think sometimes we push it very far. See, there are various styles of leadership. So you have what the basic ones like the authoritative type, and then we have the democratic style, and we have the delegate and all those kinds of leadership style that people have. Okay, now all of these styles are important in their own ways. Okay, sometimes you need to be authoritative. Sometimes you need to delegate. You need to be democratic. So the leadership skills, okay, is the ability of a leader to combine these leadership styles depending on the situation that he or she finds himself. That is where we say this person has leadership skills. Because when there's a need to be authoritative, he or she is authoritative for a good purpose. When he needs to be democratic, he is democratic. When he needs to delegate, he can, so that is what leadership skills of ability to combine the various leadership styles in a manner that impacts on the group positively, not negatively. And of course, we have communication skills, need organizational skills, and a whole host of them. So I needed to bring in that part of what leaders need to perform. There are a whole host of the empathy, integrity, honesty. They are all there. They are all so important. And I always emphasize on integrity and honesty and all. But you see, leader needs some confidence to operate. Leader needs some boldness. One of the things that steals boldness and confidence, integrity. When a leader lacks integrity, it affects his confidence and his boldness. When a leader is dishonest, confidence and boldness goes through the windows. Okay, so all these things are things that a leader needs to. Of course, you also need the support of the followers, which is why you have to behave and act in a manner which gets your followers to be with you. So that was to establish the fact that leaders need certain things to perform. There are some tangibles.
Doc, let me cut in here and ask a question. So would you say that as a leader, you need to define, let your people know the roadmap, that this is it, this is what we are working with. This is where we intend, this is our final destination. This is what we are looking at. Or should they be given in bits and pieces as and when?
Good question again. You love asking very good questions. You see, the challenge with a one-off response or one-type response to this question is that the context always differs. Every leadership role has different context. Okay, so and that is where the diligence of a leader really comes in. That's one of the things that I didn't mention. That's where the diligence really comes in, because you remember this thing in the Bible, was it the sons of Issachar?
Yes.
Who knew to do exactly. Okay, so there are certain situations that require you letting people know everything, and there are certain situations out of wisdom will tell you to go slowly, review things gradually, because you have people, and it depends on your circumstance, because you have people who are not able to handle certain things at certain points.
Right.
And yes, if you're not careful, you create challenges and problems for them. So it's about looking at the situation all the time, which is why it is important to understand your groups. And I've mentioned several times here, it's important to understand your group, because a good understanding and appreciation of your group will let you be able to deliver the sort of leadership that is in line with their aspirations.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. So Lauren has joined me. She's actually doing this with me today. And she has been waiting for the moment. I know she's a type that would like to, she'd love to ask questions. Her hand is up already. Lauren, unmute yourself and go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Paulina. Good evening, everybody, and good afternoon to those who are not in Ghana. I have two questions. The first one is, can we have someone, if you're saying that we have people who are born leaders, can we have someone who is born a leader? The person may have traits, but would not exhibit it till the person dies. Is it possible that we can have people like that? Maybe due to the person's upbringing, maybe the person was born from a poor home. So because of that, the person is not able to develop the traits of being a leader. And till death, the person is not able to be a leader. That's my first question. Is it possible we can have someone like that? And the second one is, does temperament count with leadership? Do we have certain temperaments that we can say that, okay, sanguines are pure leaders, or we have the melancholic who are pure leaders, or it cuts across? We can just have anybody from any of these four temperaments being a leader. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Is that Lauren?
Yes,
okay.
That's Lauren.
Yes, very, very, very good questions. Let me take it from the first one. I may not have data to back my response, but it is very possible. It is very possible for people born with leadership traits, but unable to unleash those leadership traits of the circumstances that find themselves in. And that is one of the tragedies of leadership, because you may have somebody who really, but how would we know if we never get the opportunity for such a person to be able to have that opportunity? Because the whole thing is that sometimes we find ourselves in certain circumstances, and I'm not good at memory verses, but this story about this of these Israelites who was, I think, was it? Sorry, I can't remember. But somebody was praising him that he's a man of valor, he's this, he's that, he's that. And he was like, if I am such a person, how come my people are perishing? How come that my people, yes, are not achieving what they need to achieve? Guess what? The circumstances changed. That which was in him actually came out. Okay, and he was able to conquer. So can you imagine if that opportunity never came, this person would have gone without having the opportunity to unleash those leadership. So it's, for me, I think it is very, very possible. Like I said, I would have data to support that. The second question, very important. Unfortunately, it is not an area that I've really ventured into. Okay, with regards to temperaments and leadership, I have not at all. So unfortunately, I'm not able to speak on that. At best, what I do know, and from my personal point, and frankly, I have not even tried, quote unquote, to box myself into any of these temperaments. Because for me, I believe that I'm able to do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. So in whatever situation I find myself, I try to do my best. But that's not to say these things are not important, because I've read a few times where some writers have tried to link some of these temperaments to specific way of doing things, which lend themselves to some good leadership traits. So it is possible that some sort of leadership can be linked to some of the temperaments, but it's not an area that I've really ventured into. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doc. I also want to give a little contribution to in regards to the temperament issue. I don't think that any person has just a temperament. There is a combination, only that one could be domineering. So you have a bit of, you could be a sanguine with melancholy or phlegmatic, traits in you. So you have one or two, but one of them definitely would dominate. Yes. Uh-huh. And the other thing that I am also thinking is definitely, like Doc said, if the opportunity is not given to you, you cannot exhibit what you have. And so you could only be in your room, leading yourself. What impact would it make anyway? So once the opportunity is there, some people have been given the opportunity, but they have not been able to prove themselves worthy of the cause. It takes time. So I think that all kinds of things come to play, if you ask me. Yes.
Okay, Lina, just a bonus question, please.
Please go ahead.
Can you teach a child at a tender stage to become a leader? Probably you don't know whether it's inborn or the child would have to learn, but at a tender stage, you feel, no, my child would have to be a leader. So we are doing this, involve yourself, we are doing this, make sure you stand out, blah, blah, blah. Is it possible that at a tender stage, you can teach a child to become a leader? Thank you.
Lauren, you actually took the winner myself, because that's exactly what I was going to comment after Lena made her point. That personally, I think leadership is something that we need to teach our children right from day one, so to speak. It is something that we have to teach them from that tender age, so that when the opportunity comes, it will be easier for them to identify themselves with the leadership opportunity. Okay, it's one thing having that opportunity to lead, and it's another thing knowing that you have the potential to do it, and so you jump into it and do it. And so if we create that consciousness, and you see, so long as we continue to be social beings, so long as we continue to live in groups, so long as we continue to work in groups, so long as we continue to interact in groups, leadership will always be with us. It will always be with us, and which is why it is something that it shouldn't be only at the university level. You know, there's something called entrepreneurship, and that's where we are teaching leadership and all that. It has to start right from the one. Of course, from the schools as well, and from home as well. Let our children know that there is something called leadership, and this is what it is all about. It is about being there for people, being there for groups. And indeed, leadership is, for me, like our Lord Jesus Christ taught us. That for me, that is it. That is the highest form of sacrifice that we can all do to ourselves and to our communities and to groups, living for others, being there for people, guiding people, directing them, sacrificing yourself, for people, committing yourself to people, dedicating yourself to people. Leadership is all about. So I agree so much with you, and that's exactly what I was going to say, that we need to start leadership right from the beginning. And maybe we should start the advocacy now.
Doc, I think that leadership already starts from the beginning, because parents are making sure the kids, you do this, they are directing our path and making sure that we grow up to become somebody's in future. And so in their own small way, or in our own small way, so to speak, I think that we are bringing up children to become leaders, to become mothers, to become fathers, to make sure that they get out there into the various groups and they are putting up, good behaviors and doing the right things. So I think that
Lina, you are so right. You are so right. Except that we want it to be more deliberate. We want them to appreciate this whole concept of leadership, not just in the normal way of learning things at home, but to create that consciousness. It's this core concept of leadership.
Right.
It requires this, it requires that, so as you grow up. So yes, it's the same thing, but this time I want to be very deliberate about it. And
right. Okay, so let's do some small marketing here. Somebody posted in the chat section, wants to know how much the book costs. I think if you go to Amazon, if you want it in a paper form, it costs I think $7.15 or so. And if you want to get an ebook, it's $3.11 or so, a little less than $4. And then if you want the paper, a little less than $8. So I think you can get it on Amazon. But if not, then Doc, maybe the person wants to walk into a bookshop somewhere and grab it without having to, buy it online. How do we get it?
Adwa, just like my midlife autobiography, I print a certain number of copies and that's it.
Oh.
So frankly, I don't have, when I published it, I used it to celebrate my 50th birthday.
Right.
So I printed copies and then gave it as a gift to every person who attended the, the, the ceremony.
The ceremony.
And then we sold a few, and that's it. So the rest, the e-books can have it. No more printing.
Right. So you just go on Amazon. If you have the Amazon app, just get on there and then type Unchained Leadership. It's there. I've been there myself. That's how come I know how much it costs. So you get there and you will find it. I want to acknowledge a few people. So DO2, Kwesi Ofori from the Ghana National Fire Service joined us. Thank you so much. We love you. And Dr. Seth is always with us. I also want to acknowledge also for Mami Barbara. Thank you so much. You have been passing through from time to time. This is the CS Show, a proud initiative by Prophetess Rhoda Anna Asiedu Mafo, the General Overseer of Manifestation of Holiness. Join us Mondays through to Fridays for our midnight draw. The time is 4 a.m. Ghana time. You can also join us for our Zion Hour and time with the Word of God, respectively. The time is 4 p.m. Ghana time. Please do the calculation to suit your location. Doc, let me get back to you so that we wrap things up.
Okay, Lila, if you go to the end of the book, what I tried to do there to share some of my leadership experiences, and it was to make a point. You see, I think sometimes we take certain situations or positions we find ourselves in for granted. What we forget is that every opportunity that we get in this world is an opportunity to learn something. It's an opportunity that God has given to us to improve on the situation that we find ourselves in. Okay, and so whether it's from the classroom, whether it's as the secondary school prefectship, whether it's in a corporate environment, in the church environment, because I've served in the church, I've been with the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship, I've been a chapter president there before, I served as a head of department in the university, I've been a convener of my year group at 284. I'm also the board chair of a pharmaceutical company. And then I've also, in fact, a number of them, I'm a family man as well, as you know. Okay.
Right.
And for me, these are all leadership opportunities. And as much as possible, all these things that I have talked about are things that I try to apply in all these situations. Okay. So let's not wait for the highest position that we can ever get, excel in leadership. Because once it has to do with people, once it has to do with the group, then you need to bear in mind that leadership is a serious business. Because it's like standing at the apex of a triangle. Okay, everybody down there is looking at you. So whatever you do becomes something that can impact on somebody. In fact, even the words you say or speak is something that can change somebody's life. That listening ear that you give to a member of the group can change something about that person. Okay, your attitude to things, the way you do your things. There's so much, and you'll be amazed. You see what went on last week with some of the things that Alvin and other colleagues said. These are all things that they haven't really said to me. Of course, they pass a few comments here and there, but so you see that we are occupying positions which impacts on people, even though a lot of them we may not be aware. And so let's take every leadership opportunity that we get very serious. And that's why I always say my mantra is leadership is a serious business.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that with the Ghana Hotels Association. Don't take any leadership opportunity for granted. So my advice to your distinguished audience here is that every leadership you find yourself in. And remember, that's obviously what I have to end with. God who placed you there, and you are answerable to God first than to even your group. Okay, so your link with God, your relationship with God will make all the difference. Once you have that strong relationship with God, the inspirations will come, the guidance will come, the directions will come. There are a lot of things I receive in dreams and I act on and on them, and then it makes a whole difference in what. So, Lina, that is leadership for you. It requires dedication, it requires commitment, it requires a whole lot. That is how God wants it. But our God is a God of excellence. And leadership must be leadership. No leadership.
I don't know if Lorraine, after giving her bonus question, would want to chip in a piece of cake. I don't know if you want to. Yes, you have the opportunity. Okay, so some
I
big
didn't want to
music
talk,
there.
but you just said something, and I don't know whether I can answer a question based on that. He said being a leader is serious business.
Right.
So I'm just tempted to think that being a husband, probably sometimes you talk to his kids or his wife as though they are his subordinates, sort of. I don't know. It's just a thought that came to mind.
Okay. Now, when I say leadership is a serious business, it's not really in that sense of applying corporate principles, but it is to attach importance. It's to emphasize that leadership is important. Okay, so it's about appreciating the fact that leadership is important. And if leadership is important, then you need to do everything that will ensure that you lead very well. So in my home, as Lauren was saying, I combine all the forms of leadership style. Exactly. They are all there. I need to be authoritative. I have to be authoritative. I need to be.
When you have persuaded and you are not having the way through, then you have to be strict on that.
It depends. You see, in some cases, you rightly mentioned earlier on that sometimes time becomes a factor.
Right.
Times becomes a factor. I mean, look at a case where your 12-year-old boy has a paper to write tomorrow, and then he decides to want to spend that time playing or doing every other thing apart from sitting down to learn. I mean, that one, you have to exactly. So it depends on the situation. Okay. But the leadership is a serious business. It's just to emphasize the importance of leadership. That
right.
You appreciate what goes wrong when the leader of a family goes bonkers, so to speak. You appreciate what goes wrong when the leader of a corporate body goes bonkers. You appreciate what goes wrong when the leadership of a church or a leader of a church. Okay? So, and we underestimate the impact on the followers. We underestimate the impact of that on the groups. We underestimate it. I mean, sometimes I ask myself, some of the scandals that we see in the newspapers, sometimes ask yourself, how does the person involved actually survive at the family level, in the home? How does the person, survive it even in the corporate environment? When these scandals come out there, you understand. So once you find yourself in a certain position, it comes with a huge responsibility, and you need to take it with all the seriousness that it deserves. That's what a leadership is all about.
Right. There is a question in the chat section. Let me quickly read that. It says, Doc, please, did you touch on conflict management in your book?
Conflict management. I think I mentioned it in just one line. Some of the skills. You see, the book in a way is what's the right word? More like a pointer. Okay. There are a lot of things in there which you would need to explore further. Okay, so I've mentioned the need for a leader to have negotiation skills. I mean, there's a whole lot of books on negotiation skills, conflict resolution and management and all those things. Okay, so these are all things which you can go further to explore. Of course, I cannot really capture everything on leadership in this small book, but it's a pointer to several things that we really can talk about when it comes to this. And I'm sure, Lina, you know that there are volumes and volumes of books on leadership.
Right.
This gives me the opportunity to share my own experiences with regards to what leadership is.
Wonderful people. I don't know if there are any questions, any concerns you want to put across before. The journey has been so smooth. We are just about to get off the bus, the airplane. We are just about to onboard, So if you have anything concerning leadership, anything concerning adventures beyond Mpataba, Dr. Ackah-NYamike is here. Let's do this together before the bus stops. And so I would want to go ahead and say a very big thank you to Mrs. Juliet Ackah-NYamike for allowing us time with Dr. Ackah-NYamike. Thank you so much. We can't thank you enough. And to you, our cherished audience, you have always been amazing. This show will not be any good show without you. You make sure you are here. Make sure you are ready for our guests. You make sure you are soaking and tapping and drumming from our guests. We want to say a very big thank you to you. It's been a year and you have been very consistent. Thank you so much. Lauren, what do you want to say as your final words before Doc gives us the final words?
Okay, Lina. I haven't read the book actually, but I'm eager to read it. Maybe when I read and I have more questions, I could just contact him one-on-one, and then we'll pick it up from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's okay. Doc, when is court resuming fully? A few
Good
persons have
question.
contacted me backdoor and they want to know. They really want to pull you here and there. Tell us when court is coming back fully.
We are hoping to get back on track this year. It's a discussion that we've been having, so we'll certainly get back on track this year. But by the end of the year, we should be hitting the ground running.
I want to be a member of court, so count me in.
I hear you. We'll go through the process.
Yes, okay. So Mavis didn't get the opportunity to send some shout outs to you. Good enough, she joined, she joined in the last minutes. Mavis,
really?
would you want to unmute yourself? Dr. Ackah-NYamike is here. You know what he has taken you through. You want to show him some love. So if you can hear me, unmute yourself. I did something on your behalf last week, but that wasn't enough. So Mavis, we are waiting for you.
Sorry, where I am is so noisy. I'm so sorry. I just joined late. I'm so happy to see Prof. My doctor, my only doctor, Professor, one in town. He's the best. I don't even know what to say. He's like a brother, a friend, a father, everything that you can think of. He's the best. And I always want to say that God bless you for everything that you did for me and my family. He really appreciated it. God bless you and your family. I've missed you all and your lovely wife. I can't wait to see you in Ghana.
Wow. Amen to that.
Wow. So
nice to hear from you, Mavis.
This is amazing. From a student who is satisfied with how good Doc has been. So that's the book, Unchanged Leadership. That's the book. Yes, you want to grab your copy. Get on Amazon. You can get it for less than $8. If you want the hard copy, less than $8. If you want the ebook, you can get it for less than $4. So please go on there, get the book, read, and you would not regret you did it. Doc, I salute you so much. Thank you. A very big one from Prophetess Rhoda Anna Asiedu Mafo. We love you so much. You have so much become part of this family. And we want to tell you, we love you. There is
Amen.
absolutely nothing you and your family can do about it. We love you so much. Wonderful people. This is where time will allow us. Let me see. Just about wrapping up. I'm getting some few. Okay, so from can you put the book on the screen? Okay, it was done some few seconds. Okay, good to hear from you, Mavis. God bless you. That's from Mrs. Juliet Ackah-NYamike. Wow. Lena, please next time do a screenplay on the book. Okay, please, we will do that. We will do that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ackah-NYamike. We thank you so much. We are so grateful. Every time we meet Doc, it's like it has just begun. We wish we were not going now, but when court resumes fully, we are bringing Doc back so that we know what to do and all that. So Mr. Benjamin is there. He testified the last time. Good to see you. Good to see you. We love you all, our cherished audience. We love you, Mr. Annan, Mr. Benjamin. Mr. Benjamin. So we have two Benjamins. We have Mr. Benjamin Afunya. Thank you, Dr. Seth. M. Drizzle's iPhone. Thank you for passing through. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Eva Owusu Acham. Thank you, Evelyn India. Gideon Aguti, Gloria Amankwa, Isaac Bimpon, Israel, Jennifer, Joanna, my co-host, Mrs. Juliet Ackah-NYamike, thank you for coming. Kwame Apia, Asofumami Barbara, Liz, another co-host. Mefia, thank you for passing through. Mama Dojo, we love you. And Lorraine is here. Maud, thank you for coming. Mavis, thank you. Thank you, Mildred. Mama Innocential, you have been very consistent. Mama Comfort, thank you. Prince Owusu Achina, thank you for sharing. You keep sharing, this program for people to come on board. Sandra, thank you. We love you so much, and there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. We pray that next week we come on board. The topic for next week is hot. Let me give you a gist of it. Vaginal care. Please, men and women, especially the men, come on board. Let's delve into this issue and love our wives better. On that note, we have come to the